Okay, I've got one more heading. I recorded it, but then I messed it up after lunch. So it's just the Second Amendment. So there's neat stuff on the Second Amendment. First thing to say about it is the most recent one to be incorporated to the states was in the 2000s. And so, in the 30s, you had the free expression stuff, the due process stuff in the 60s. And then look at the actual words of the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So then the question is, whose rights are being protected? The militia's rights, the people's plural, or is this about individuals too? So today the debate's about individuals. It's coming out of Lexington, so it's a militia at Lexington. And the history of militias is they hadn't performed very well. They didn't perform, the farmers got scared and ran away at Lexington. And then in the War of 1812, they did awful. And so Constitution talks about calling up and training militia, but they never performed well, so we kind of gave up on them after the War of 1812. Okay, so at this point, things get, kind of straightforward, but not really. All right, so 1934, you got a law called the National Firearms Act, and the case comes out of it, U.S. versus Miller, because you got this guy Miller right here. He's got that mafia look to him, and he's killing people with sawed-off shotguns, and so the ruling is that this law is allowed. That the national firearms, that the Congress is allowed to outlaw sawed-off shotguns. All right. The Brady Bill. That's the Reagan assassination attempt. I think that right there is Jim Brady. He was Reagan's press secretary. We saw him on Gunned Down, if you watch that video. Okay. So Clinton introduced the Brady Bill. Congress passed the Brady Bill under Clinton, named after a Republican press secretary. Reagan supported it. There's a New York Times article by Reagan. I may show it here in just a second. I'll pull it up and you can watch it on the video, where Reagan is speaking out in favor of some sort of gun control. It's a 10-year ban, so it ended under Bush, and in Gunned Down, you kind of saw the NRA influence on the ending of the ban. Okay, here's the last one. I'm not sure it's a D.C. case. I'm not sure if it's Parker versus D.C. Let's check right now because I botched it on my little my matching thing I gave to everybody. All right, so we're going to look right here. Versus D.C. gun control. Yeah, it's D.C. versus Heller. So I need to switch that. D.C. versus Heller. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Versus Heller. All right. So in this one, the Supreme Court rules that, nope, it's not about the people, plural. It's not about the militia. It's about individuals. That the city of Washington, D.C. is not allowed to ban handguns within the city limits. And so then the question is, does that mean the Second Amendment has been applied to the states? Has it been incorporated? And within a year, you've got McDonald versus Chicago. And the Supreme Court ruled that the Chicago handgun ban was unconstitutional. And so that's the mayor of Chicago. His name's Daley. He's the son of the mayor Daley from the 1968 Chicago police riot. But he's all tore up because he said, hey, crime's going to go up in Chicago. And that was a few years ago. Of course, crime is very high in Chicago. Now, I don't know if it's because of handguns or what. Having said that, the Supreme Court ruled in a 5-4 vote, and Scalia's kind of he was kind of the spokesman. I think wrote the majority opinion on this one. And the opinion was that, in fact, states cannot ban handguns, that there's an individual right to bear arms. So the Second Amendment does apply to handguns and applies to individuals. Okay, there's your questions. Let you look at them. Let's go over here. Let's see if we can find Reagan on gun control. There we go. I think it's on like, let's see, this one's the one. So it's 1989, so it's prior to, it's during the Bush. It was pretty good.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Rod Brinker. I'm a junior, and I'm majoring in urban planning. My question to you is, you might not have dealt with it directly, but being of military knowledge, it's probably up your alley. In the last 10 years, conservation groups have just come to realize that the majority of funds supporting their drives have come from pro-hunting groups, such as Ducks Unlimited. Looking at the tragic event that recently took place in Stockton, do you feel that by banning military rifles, we will be able to take the guns out of the hands of the murderers without having it escalate to taking guns away from hunters, the ones who are most responsible for saving our forests and wetlands, which are vanishing rapidly?
I would be very happy to answer that question. California has a system, unlike that of many other states, in which when you're going to buy a gun, you put down your money and you buy the gun, but you don't get to pick up the gun for several days, because investigation is then made to make sure that you're not a felon, that you don't have a record of bad conduct, or that you are mental illness or anything, and then you can come back and get your gun. And I do not believe in taking away the right of the citizen to own guns for sporting, for hunting and so forth, or for home defense. But I do believe that an AK-47, a machine gun, is not a sporting weapon or needed for defense at all.
Lo and behold, so when in doubt on an issue, go to Ronald Reagan. So there you see Ronald Reagan enunciating very skillfully the centrist position on gun control. So there it is. All right, let's go over here and see if we can make this thing stop. That's what went wrong last time. I couldn't make it stop.